Welcome to Therapy by Choice podcast. My name is Robyne Vance. I am your host for this podcast and an associate marriage and family therapist working with individuals, couples, and families. My therapeutic services are offered through Therapy by Choice, which is a private practice with offices located in San Jose and Palo Alto, California. On this podcast, we offer educational information on a variety of mental health topics. We speak to specialists in the field, and we answer your questions. We focus on helping you navigate life's challenges and offer easy-to-follow practical advice and opinions. Welcome to Therapy by Choice podcast. My name is Robyne Vance. Today's episode is a special one, not just because of the topic, but because of the person joining me. Ken Kafele is someone I've had the privilege of knowing for many, many years. And over those years, I've seen firsthand the kind of thoughtfulness, depth, passion, and brilliance he brings to everything he does. So let me start by giving you a bit of information on my guest. Ken Kafele is a licensed educational psychologist and board-certified behavior analyst dedicated to empowering families, learners, and professionals through practical tools and strategies. As the founder of the Jedi Institute of Learning, Mr. Kafele develops resources like the Jedi Arithmetic Workbook and the Behavior Bootcamp for Parents, blending clinical expertise with approachable real-world solutions. With degrees in psychology, education, and music, and a passion for accessible education, Mr. Kafele helps parents, educators, and learners feel confident, supported, and equipped to create lasting change. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robyne. That was an excellent introduction. You sure I wrote that, or did you write that?
Yep.
Man,
Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. For me, this conversation is kind of a bit of a full circle moment. Getting to
wow.
sit down with you and share a bit of what I believe makes you so insightful and just overall, just genuinely good company.
Mm.
And I think that today we're going to be covering some things that I know many people, including myself, but specifically parents, caregivers, and educators, have been trying to make sense of, and questions that come up often, but sometimes people don't have straightforward answers or access to someone who can provide those answers.
Correct. That's
Well,
funny.
yeah, I normally start off by asking my guests how they entered their chosen field. But I figure since we've known each other a bit longer, I figure we start off with something a bit lighter.
Okay. Right.
All right. So I know you have a deep love for music.
Oh, wow. All right. I like it.
Yep. So if your work had a theme song, what would it
Mm.
be?
Wow. If my work had a theme song, it would
Uh-huh.
be Master Teacher by Erica Badu. I think
That's
everybody,
great
if you're
right here.
listening to that, yeah, definitely take a listen to that song, and it will give you a very clear idea of at least where I'm coming from.
Nice. And we will definitely have to check that out. I'll probably link it for our listeners as
Yes,
well.
please do. A lot of stories behind that song. Wow.
Yeah, and I want to start off just you know, I want to start off with something hard hitting.
Okay.
And something that I think has been really heavily on my mind lately as I'm, seeing kind of a shift in what's going on is just mental health support for school age kids.
Mm,
I feel that it's a critical issue, especially with all the pressures that kids are facing today. And specifically, I again like that you have the clinical expertise and some educational experience that you can bring to this topic.
mm.
Um, so, as far as that goes, what signs of mental health distress should parents and teachers look for in school age children?
That's an excellent question. And before I get started into that, I just want to thank you, Robin, for hosting this podcast, for bringing us on, because the work that you're doing is very, very needed to give people that information, to give them that accessibility, and allow them to digest it in a nice, comfortable way. So I definitely want to shout out by giving kudos to the platform, number one.
Oh,
That's
thank you. I appreciate that.
oh, of course, absolutely. And then to answer your question, some of the main things that you want to look for in any child, a children's age that is having difficulties either adjusting or having difficulties with mental health, you
Mhm.
will see it in their behavior. Children are not as, I wouldn't say thoughtful, but as cognitive as we are. So they don't process the information like adults would,
Yeah.
and they don't act out the way an adult would. So typically you will see difficulties sleeping. You'll see difficulties focusing, concentrating, making frequent activity changes, crying, temperamental, temper tantrums, um, seemingly having meltdowns on everyday routine tasks, or uh, let's say if somebody requests something of them, if that's not something that they want to do, that they're very temperamental and emotional about that. And
Yeah.
then lastly, if they're in a school, you're going to look at their grades. How do they socialize with the other children? Are they able to get along? Um, they don't have to have straight A's, because we can talk about grades and what they really mean in, another section. But look at how they're able to perform. Do they at least understand the principles?
Hmm.
Or if they don't understand the principles, just the basic, is it that they're not doing the work? So we call that a can't do versus won't do when you're looking at the
Mm,
problem. So
yes.
when you're looking at that, that should give you a well-rounded idea of how, if a child is experiencing any mental health difficulties. Also look at their appetite, and also look at their toileting routines. So,
Hmm.
any parent who, has children or even around young children, know that those are the things that are going to be affected first if they're experiencing any type of mental health difficulties.
Wow. That's a definitely it's a lot to consider.
Mm,
And in that consideration, right, I think of this kind of system that you have where you have your educators, then you have caregivers, right? And then of
correct.
course you have the students and the children. And certainly the task or the onus seems like it's kind of on the caregivers to maybe look at some of those signs and symptoms that are happening at home. But
Mhm.
as far as the schools go, what can the schools do to create an environment that does foster mental well-being and health for the students?
The number one thing that a school can do is offer support, a place where a child can feel safe, where they can come, where they can decompress, where they can release from stress, where they have somebody to talk to, and where they have other people who are experiencing similar things that they can bounce ideas, they can find camaraderie with, and they can just find a family that helps them, not to normalize their situation, but to help them understand this is things that people go through, and
Mhm,
to help them get through it. And the way that schools typically do this are two ways. One is through the Section 504 plan of the Rehabilitation Act, and the other is through an individualized education plan. One is a 504 plan. That's the first one. It is like an IEP light. So students who have any type of handicapping condition that substantially limits their access to education or any type of life faculties, they can get a plan that kind of helps them. If they need to take a break, if they need extra time to complete a test, if they need to test in a separate facility. Then, if that isn't sufficient and the student has
mhm,
been diagnosed with an actual disability, they will get, they can qualify for, I should say, an individualized education plan through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004. And that will be a complete um, plan, complete with an assessment, with goals, and with a plan of how to reach those goals. And that is very individualized, but it is only restricted for students who have a diagnosed disability or who meet disabling criteria. And there are 13 criteria um, in the,
wow.
yeah, there's quite a few of them in IDEA that allows a child to access those services. And they're available from 2 all the way up to 22. So if you have an administrator at your school, a teacher at your school, and your child is experiencing difficulties, just let them know. Ask them for a meeting. Ask them for if what are they already doing? Are they experiencing the same thing at school? And what is already working? You want to know what's not what's not working, what is working. So those are the steps that I
Mm.
would take from the beginning, and those are the supports that are typically available to children. That 504 plan, as well as the IEP, and the people who would help would be school psychologists. It could be the counselor. It could be a speech and language pathologist, an occupational therapist. There's so many people involved in the IEP team that that student really gets a individualized education to help them succeed.
Well, that was really informative, even for me. Because to tell you the truth, really, even though I've worked overlap with some school work, I always thought that IEP and 504 were kind of like one and the same. I
Mm,
never knew that, hey, there's that those were separate. Um,
right,
or I thought that, maybe the 504 was for this type of kid and the IEP is for this type of kid. And this is
right.
this is why these types of conversations need to happen, because even myself, as someone who in the past has worked with young children and who still sees kiddos occasionally, knowing this information is definitely really helpful.
Excellent. Excellent one. I'm glad that it was helpful. There'll be
Yeah,
more.
and kind of to, go off the path a little bit. When when a kid is starting school, right? We all know generally here in California, kiddos start in August. And maybe the previous year, kiddo was doing really great, right? And I guess my question is, how far into the school year would you wait until you start to maybe think for your kid, like, hey, I wonder what's going on? Like
Mm,
there, yeah, besides like the adjustment of, hey, maybe I was in fourth grade and now I'm in fifth, and maybe the curriculum is a little bit more difficult. But like, what does that like? When should a parent like? Am I stepping in September? Like,
right.
when should I be concerned about? Hey, something's up.
That's an excellent question. And I would start off by saying the number one predictor of a child's academic success is parental involvement. So that is to say, there's not really a time frame. It is really you keeping your finger on the pulse,
Hmm.
finding out what, um, I guess, interventions or supports have been tried and making sure that they get followed through and carried out. And I say that because that could happen within the first week for some people. For some people, it won't happen until the end of the first semester. Some people, it won't happen all year. So it
Hmm.
varies. And, there is not really a time when students are having a lot more difficulty than others outside of the beginning of the school year. But that's just getting back to the routine, finding out where my class is at, finding out who my friends or my
Yeah.
friend group is. Um, so, typically a month is a good time to just kind of see and wait to shake things out if you're looking for a general time frame. But I would also preface that by saying it varies, it's individualized, but as long as you have your finger on the pulse and look for any drastic changes, that'll help you stay on top of anything as it creeps up.
That's really, really helpful. Um, and then also the kind of along those same lines is, how can a parent or, educator in that sense collaborate to identify mental health concerns early?
Correct, absolutely. Now that's when it gets to the evaluation point, and the school typically does a really good job of filtering out low-level behavior problems from a mental health issue. Because with the talk, with social media, with things being popularized, a lot of parents sometimes are quick to think their child has a disability or almost push them towards having a disability for various
Yeah.
reasons. And that is not what the systems and the supports are set in place for. So you really want to get the professionals involved. If you feel like, my child is wetting the bed, they never did that before, they're losing sleep, they don't want to eat, um, they're having social issues, they're fighting at school, you don't want to automatically go to, hey, child has ADHD. They have a learning
Yeah.
disability. They need, to be put in a little format prison facility. No, that's not what you want to do. Let's start from the beginning. Teacher, are you seeing these things at school? How are you handling it? What seems to work for you? That's not working. Oh, we got to take a level. Can we talk to the principal? Principal, is there anything that we can put in place? Is there like a peer buddy, or is there like a study group or a social group? Oh, we tried that for a couple of weeks. That's not working. Uh-oh. Can we get a counselor in here? Oh, they do some little preliminary counselor with some counseling group. Ooh, wow, things are still not seeming to progress. Things are getting worse. That's when they will call the school psychologist, someone such as myself. That person then will determine, do we need to do a psychoeducational evaluation to determine if
Yeah.
this child has a disability, or is this a temporary adjustment issue that can be corrected with some minor supports and services? So that's kind of how you want to go about it. You want to try not to be quick. Sometimes, you had suspicions and things are going on. And in that case, what you can do is contact a professional such as myself, a licensed educational psychologist or a behavior analyst, and have them help you put together a letter for the school that lets the school know that you are looking into assessments to determine if your child has either a handicapping condition or a disability. So that's kind of the flow that would take. If you start to
Yeah.
suspect a problem, you want to try to see if it can get addressed in one of those earlier steps. But if not, it can graduate all the way up to uh, an assessment, a qualification. So they give you a qualifying criteria, and then you'll get an IEP, which helps you meet those goals. So yeah, it is quite a process, but it's there for a good reason.
It definitely does sound like, quite a bit of work on everyone involved. But like you said, there's an ultimate goal and an ultimate reason for those things. I know you spoke a little bit earlier, about the home environment.
Mm.
But specifically, can you go into, I mean, we all, of course, I think, have our immediate thoughts about, oh, I don't, that person ain't got no home training and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But what role does a child's home and, technically their social environment play in their mental health?
Oh, wow. It, it may be one of the biggest factors in determining how a child is going to perform in school. And the reason being is because that's where you'll have experience with ACEs, or adverse
Yes.
childhood experiences.
Hmm.
And in the home life, that's where those things can happen, in the negative way and in a positive way. So if a child has been exposed to language and books and text, they have a significantly higher chance of reading by entering school, by graduating on grade level, and then attending college, finishing and making money, owning a home, things of that nature. If they're unable to do those things, you can see where there's a disadvantage as soon as they start, the first day they start. Um, as a matter of fact, there's a lot of data coming out right now that 6-year-old children who are starting kindergarten are not even potty trained. They don't respond to their name. They don't know how to write the first letter in their name. And these are things that I can remember learning way before I got to school. So
Yes.
that home environment is significant because the mother is the first teacher. The father is the first teacher. Your siblings are your cousins are your first peer group. And those help to form those early relationships and how you're going to act and respond and, play as you get older. So it really develops you a strong foundation. If you can get that from your home life, that will carry you throughout your academic and social life.
Yeah, definitely. And that home environment is really, really, really critical. And, I think also just in mental health as well, like when we talk about education, but, correlating with that with mental health, personally for me, very, very young, I was fortunate to have, I call my parents trailblazers.
Mm.
I was fortunate enough to have parents who understood, hey, sometimes when you have a problem and you don't have a solution, there are these wonderful people that you can go talk to.
Right.
And that they're therapists, and through that experience was kind of how mental health and things were normalized for me.
Right.
Fast forward many years later, we won't say the number, but many years later, and with everything that we have nowadays, and knowing better than myself about the challenges kids are facing, how do we normalize seeking mental health support amongst children nowadays?
Absolutely. And it starts with just awareness. Awareness that people have different responses to different events. Somebody can experience an event and it may be traumatic. Somebody can experience an event and it's just like another day.
Yeah.
And letting the students know, look, we all have differences. We all need support in certain areas. We all have gifts. And sometimes if you need support for these types of reasons, there is somebody you can go to. There is somewhere you can go. There are others who are experiencing the same thing as you who can help you get through it. You are not alone, to quote the great Michael Jackson. So if you can put those things into place, then you are giving them the onus and the power, because knowledge is power. You give them the power to say, you know what, I'm feeling like they said when they came and, gave us, I don't know, a presentation, or, my teacher talked about it. Can I seek somebody to help me through that? A lot of times, teachers will have social emotional curriculum in the room. So they may have things that talk about depression or sadness or excitability. So they'll have a basic understanding, but they won't know when it's unbalanced, too much excitement, too little excitement, too much sadness, too little sadness, and helping them navigate that with just early exposure. Don't beat them over the head with mental health talk and jargon, because you're going to get hypochondriacs in the mental health world. Just give them exposure. If you don't need it, excuse me, don't worry about it. But once again, everybody's different. If you are someone who needs it, it is here, is available for you.
Yeah. And, speaking of school, you talked a little bit about social emotional learning. But are there any other kind of more, other effective school-based mental health interventions that are out there?
Oh, 100%. There are one of the most effective, excuse me, are the peer groups. If you
Mm.
can get a group together of children who are experiencing the same things, the children are going to learn better from each other than they do from us, because they're of a similar likeness. There's a, how can I say it, a rule in behavior analysis that the more similar the teacher is to the student, the more effective the instruction will be. That takes place with children teaching children. So if a child can teach another child, they speak the same language, they have the same body language, they have the same nuances, they're going to learn it much better from their peer than they will for us. So having a peer group is one of the best things that you can do. Check in, check out, where a child comes to an adult, a trusted adult in the morning. They may have a goal. Okay, today, your day is to get through the entire day and use proper greetings. Okay, those are for children who have maybe a potty mouth or things like that. So, they set their goal with their trusted adult. They go through the day. They come back. Okay, so you used nice language with everybody all day? Yeah, okay, perfect. And they get to earn something. It could be very, very little. It could be an eraser. It could be a sticker. Children, they just want to know that they're being acknowledged for something that they did that is special. So that check in, check out can be powerful, because it also gives them that undivided adult attention on something that they've done positive. So, there are a number of different tactics that can work, and none of these have anything to do with special ed or a
Mhm.
504 plan. Anybody can put these into place at any time and help to monitor them. So those are the two things that I would go to right off the bat if I'm hearing social emotional difficulties, children. Have we tried those two things yet? Have we tried those yet? If administrators, oh my God, so and so just ran out the classroom and they're sitting outside crying. They need a psychoeducational assessment. actually, no, they don't. That's typical childlike behavior. Let's see what happened first, and let's see what we can do. And we kind of structure it that way. So a lot of times you might have adults that might be a little bit more um, hyperactive about or vigilant about um, trying to seek support or make things stop that are uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Then it needs to be at that time because they need to go through the emotions because that's how they learn. If they don't ever go through it, if they're avoiding it the entire time, once it hits, they don't know how to respond. So can avoid it. Let's not try to skip over it, but give them the tools. I mean, that,
I like that especially they gotta have tools for their little toolkit to go through life. So
hey,
wonderful time to start. And you mentioned a few times a keyword. It's actually like one of my buzzwords. So it's actually kind of good to kind of build off of that. Another aspect that often kind of goes hand in hand with mental health support is psychoeducation. That is one of
mm,
my favorite words. And also tutoring for school age kids. And I know it's not just about emotional support, but it's also about giving kids the tools they need to succeed academically, especially when they're struggling. I talk about psychoeducation probably more times than people are comfortable with. It's very important to me. But for
right.
you, what is psychoeducation and how can it support emotional development in children?
Oh, that is an excellent question. And to me, psychoeducation is a loaded word. And I
Yes.
can give you a number of etymologies and interpretations, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to give it, a base cover treatment. And when I think about psychoeducation, I think learning how to think. Psychoeducation, if we want to just get at the bare bones of what that word should mean to you if you hear it, learning how to think. One thing that our school system has kind of gotten away from as it's developed over the thousands and thousands of years is teaching how to think. They're very good at teaching what to think and when to
Mhm,
think it, but how to process the information. How do I reason through this? What is logic? What is rhetoric? How can I persuade somebody using my grammar, arithmetic? These are just the basics of living, honestly. And an education prior was about teaching you how to become closer to the divine by learning and then perfecting a craft because that's when you were most godlike. You were able to raise yourself up to a level that nobody else could get to. Think about people you know that are the best in their field. They're put up on a pedestal and they're associated with astronomical objects called stars. Okay, so this is an ancient idea. It goes, far back. And somewhere along the line, our education system changed to the point where it needed workers to produce certain types of products. And then it became more about what do you know? And how
mhm,
fast can I teach you to do that? So when I hear psychoeducation, it goes back to that. How do you learn to learn? If I can
mhm,
teach you how to learn, I don't really have to teach you anything else at that point. You can
mhm.
learn astronomy, you can learn arithmetic, you can learn grammar, you can learn whatever you want. But how do you learn? How do you focus? How do you shift your attention? Once again, how do you reason? What are some good memory tactics? All of those things. If you can teach somebody that at an early age, oh my goodness, you are teaching. You're building genius at that point.
Wow, that's a word.
Yeah, I
And
can
then
sum it up.
yeah, to tie that in, how can psychoeducational tutoring be designed to address both academic and emotional needs for school age children?
Oh, that's perfect because they go hand in hand. Number one, any student, any adult, any person who is breathing alive can benefit from psychoeducational tutoring. Who do I typically see receiving that service? are students who have difficult times engaging in academic tasks. So, for example, I have a child who, as soon as you have them sit down and do a couple of math problems, they may do one, they may do two, but by the time you get to that third one, the paper started to turn into shreds. Um, they're starting to ball it up and put it into some water, and it's dissolved and it turns into a science project. Okay.
Mm,
Not because they can't do the work, but because they're avoiding it for whatever reason. What we do is help to structure so that they are doing the best that they can in the not so difficult way, and slowly introduce more difficult material while also managing their emotions, while also managing their behavior, and also giving them the tools to manage that and respond to it once it happens. Am I feeling anxious? Is there something else that I
mhm,
want to do after this that I'm not able to concentrate on? Okay. Am I upset? And I just had a fight with my friend, and I'm not able to concentrate on what I'm doing right now. So therefore, I start to rip up my paper. Um, am I hungry? And I just can't focus because I literally don't have enough fuel. Children are unable to recognize, they don't, I shouldn't say they're unable. They don't have enough experience recognizing those bodily and those psychological functions. So when you teach them, typically when you teach them, for most of them, they respond very, very positively to that. And you get to see the learning take place. And when that
mhm.
happens, once again, you have an individual who can become self-actualized because they have the tools and they're able to implement them. So yeah, there are a number of ways that that psychoeducational piece can, like I said, support anybody really, because
Yeah.
you know, in my field, I typically work with children, but anybody who's going through a process of learning, whether you're in college, whether you're in high school, whether you're in professional development, it applies. It absolutely applies. We all know about procrastination. We all know about
Mhm.
avoidance. We all do it, you know. What are some ways that we can recognize and minimize?
Got it. Okay.
Mm,
Um, and then, I would imagine that, for educators, also for caregivers and parents, that, you may have like a thought about, hey, maybe I notice my kid does math problems differently than maybe I did them when I was a kid, right? Or hey, I noticed that when they're writing, it's not like how maybe I used to write, and I might have a
mm,
thought in my head about that. What are some of the strategies that are best for supporting this group of students who may have undiagnosed learning differences?
mm. Now that was kind of a two-part question because there was the part about the actual learning differences, and then there
Hmm.
seems to be a little question there as well about wow, how can I put it? But just being aware, I guess,
Yeah.
of your abilities, just overall.
Hmm.
And oh wow, how can I phrase this? Actually, if you could repeat it again, because I want to make sure I'm answering your question and not
Yeah.
just rambling.
What are the best strategies for supporting students with undiagnosed learning differences?
Okay, got it. So let me stick to just that part for this part. If you have an undiagnosed learning difference, I would say you're in a good position because nobody knows. Okay. And the strategies to teach you are no different than the strategies to teach the GATE student, the gifted and talented student. So that's the
Mm,
key. Uh, Good teaching is good teaching no matter who it is. So that student with the undiagnosed learning disabilities, the strategies that will work for them, and I'll give people just a general idea of learning strategies that work for anybody. Self-paced instruction. Are you able to go at your own pace and learn at your own pace? Are you learning to mastery? Okay. Because
mhm,
you are maybe a little bit behind, you don't have to keep up with the grade level curriculum. You just need to master the next step. So don't worry about trying to keep up and getting left behind, because that's where the problems start. It's about, where are you now? What do you need to know next? And how can I teach you that? So if you have um, a step of where you want to go, you have a plan of where you want to go, and you can implement some of those strategies. Like I said, it will work for people who are brilliant, people who are in the Fortune 500 company, as well as the child with a specific learning disability due to auditory processing deficits. It will all be the same. And like I said, a couple of those things are self-paced instruction. Are you going at your own pace? Are you learning to mastery? Is the pace of the instruction quick enough for you? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
our children, we say, when we say learning disabilities, a lot of the time we think too slow, slow learner. But that's not necessarily the case. The other half of the children who always get in trouble are the ones who learn too fast. So they learn the information, they're able to show you that they know how to do it, but then you're asking them to do a whole page or maybe 2 pages, and they're like, wait a minute. I've done this. I've shown you I know how to do it. I'm over. I'm done. And you're going to keep pushing me. Okay, now the tantrum is going to start. So the instruction is going too slow for them. The way school is structured now, it's really effective for those in the middle who are not too
Mm-hmm.
slow, not too fast, but they Goldilocks. It's just right. But we have to have things that work for both. So all three, the middle, the slow, and the fast. And like I said, self-paced instruction, uh, mastery, starting after an assessment. So learning what you don't know first and then starting to instruct that. Those are the things that will help anybody improve their ability in anything. It just depends on what it is that you're learning and how you want to implement it. So, you know, I try not to differentiate
Mm-hmm.
instruction when it comes to learning disabled students versus, ADHD versus gifted versus autism, because good instruction is good instruction. But I will say they do have their own quirks and their own nuances and idiosyncrasies with each of those diagnosed conditions. So they're not exactly the same, but good teaching is good teaching. So, I want to make that clear.
Well, all right. All right. Good teaching is good teaching. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then how do you balance, you mentioned about, if you're sitting down with a kid or in tutoring, how do you balance academic goals with mental health needs
Mm.
within a tutoring session?
Oh, that's brilliant. And one thing is to keep it short and fast paced. That is the key. Um, Typically, children spend 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours a day in school doing things that they don't necessarily want to do. And when I say that, it means that if you left them at home and just said, do whatever you want to do, typically they would not engage in the tasks that they're asked to do at school. See, just typically, some kids would. We see young Sheldon, so some kids would, but not everybody. So, um, in a psychoeducational tutoring session, or in a one-on-one, I have tremendous advantage because I can identify things that they like, that they're willing to work for, and those things are called motivation. And when you can establish that they can access something for doing things that they don't like to do, they are much more willing and much more motivated to get those tasks done. So one thing
Mhm.
is helping them to reach the end. It is me, it is us against the goal. It is not me against you. A lot of times, homework sessions, tutoring sessions, it becomes me versus you, teacher versus student. You're going to do what I
Yes.
say because it's good for you and you don't know better and you need to listen. That's the wrong approach to take. That's going to lead to shut down, resentment, um, pushback. What you want to say, hey, we're working together. I don't even necessarily have to be a master at the curriculum. I know you asked me earlier, if the schools are teaching two different styles, how do you, bring that together? You don't have to be
Hmm.
a master at the information. You can say, let's learn this together. Okay, let's do it together. When you switch that, oh, that's a totally different psychology that they're not ready for, but they're very excited about that. What, mama, you want to learn something with me? You don't know this already? Oh, wow, let's do it. Maybe I can teach you something, giving them the ability to teach you something or to
Yeah.
to give it back to you. They learned a skill. Let's say they learned, I don't know, multiple digit addition or multiple digit subtraction. Okay, so you learned this yesterday. Can you teach me? Or better yet, here's your little brother, little cousin, friend. Teach them how to do it. Okay. That's helping them to manage their emotions. It's managing their behavior because they're not trying to avoid, they're not trying to escape. They're getting attention, so they're not acting out in order to get attention. And that's helping them to manage that behavior. You're also giving them cognitive feedback. Okay, that
Yes.
was great. Good job on how you did that. I like the way you approached that. Oh, I see what you did. You circled this first and then you went. So you're talking through the problems with them, and that's forming neural synaptic connections. That's a pathway that helps them to remember how to get back there when they have to. So all of those little things, and they sound like frivolous or it may sound, one off. But when you can use those in a package effectively with the right timing, you will see a totally different child, human person than you did prior to that. So, there are a plethora of ways to go about doing that, but those are just a few of the things that can help during psychoeducational tutoring.
Wow. Wow. And then lastly, kind of bringing the parent or caregiver back into that, ultimately, what role does parent education play
Mm.
in effective psychoeducational support? Because I think oftentimes, we focus on the student, but what does parent education look like?
So that may be, it's not the most important, maybe the second most important aspect of teaching and learning is because when they leave your presence, let's say they come to me for an hour,
Hmm.
they get that hour and then they're gone, they have so many other things to do and they're with their parent. So what happens at that time is what is absolutely critical. Plus, the child's guard is down, which means that they're going to absorb the environment much easier than when their guard is up. So, giving parent the tools to recognize, to respond, what expectations to have, what is normal, what is it it decreases the level of anxiety in parenting because you're not feeling like you're doing it alone. So when you get the parent education, whether you're getting it on your child's disabling condition, whether you're getting it on effective ways to manage that condition, it's techniques, effective behavior management, parenting, it is only giving you a leg up on attacking this difficult thing we call adulting and parenting because the
Yes.
children are not born with any instructions. So that piece right there is so phenomenal. We talked about the ACEs and how they
Hmm.
occur in the home setting, those adverse childhood experiences. Well, if a parent learns how to avoid that, they are significantly increasing their child's ability to graduate, to live a successful life, to be a productive member of society, all of those things. And, it's kind of disheartening because when you look at the current state of education, when you look at the nation's report card that came out maybe a month ago, you see that 12th graders are graduating and are not proficient. Over 60% are not proficient in reading or math. That can be disheartening. So you say, well, what are you doing there all day?
Hmm.
What that tells you is that children can spend less time in school and learn more with the right instruction. And that instruction starts with the parents. If the
Mm.
parent can um, not necessarily recreate, but supplement some of what is learned at school, you are putting your child on another track. Okay. You are elevating the track that they're on because you're able to supplement what they're not getting in their day to day education. So that parent piece is critical, absolutely critical.
Yeah. And I know for me, even thinking back to as you were talking, I was kind of thinking back to my school experience, and for as much as I used to not be a fan of it, sometimes my parents were very hands on.
Right.
I knew for a fact that Robert or Charlotte were going to every single parent teacher conference, back
Right.
to school night. I remember one time my dad randomly showed up at school, and then that
Right.
support was followed up at home.
There you go.
Support with homework, support with, again, attending to each child's different talent or what area that they need help in.
Right.
So it's definitely as you were talking, I was like getting flashbacks of like my own kind of childhood and experience. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So key, so key.
Um, next up, something that's definitely something that we want to focus on, and something that when I was thinking like, who do I need to have on? And I thought about you, I was like, I gotta hit this area.
Mm.
Um, so I want to take a step back for a moment and focus on something that as a clinician, I really see affecting so many kids today, which is anxiety and depression.
Mm.
A lot of these issues have become more prevalent, and I think it's very important to understand how they show up in school age kids, not just
Right.
in their academic lives, but also in their day to day experiences.
Mm.
We talked about it a little bit briefly, but if you do want to expound upon it, what are early indicators of anxiety and depression in school age children?
That is a uh, um, that is a question I probably deal with the most over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years.
Mm,
How do you deal with anxiety and depression? I see a significant number of students with suicidal tendencies. I see a significant number of students with anxious tendencies, behaviors and symptoms as well. So it has become the main thing of what I do. And those things kind of ebb and flow depending on what the environment is like. So what do
yes.
you look for if you feel like your child is experiencing anxiety and depression? Let's first start off with A, anxiety. Anxiety is the anticipation of something bad happening. Okay. You have
Right.
regular expectations. Okay. Something's going to happen. Something good might happen. Okay. Those are just anticipation. Those are just expectations. When you think that a future event is going to go sour, that is anxiety. You're anxious about that because if you feel like everything's going to be successful, what happens to the anxiety? It's removed. It's all of a sudden gone. It becomes an expectation. Oh, when can we do this? Oh, is the game today? Oh, when is the test? I can't wait to take that test. But
Hmm.
when it becomes, oh no, not that again. If I take this test, I'm gonna fail, and then I'm gonna be grounded, and then I'm not gonna have no fun. And then starting to perseverate on it, and then it goes
Yeah.
into the next day, and then it's a month later, and then now it starts to manifest itself physically. So now I have difficulty focusing. Now I'm having difficulty with my friendships. And these are the things that you'll start to see. Let's just go with I'll say a lower grade student first, because they do manifest themselves differently. Let's start off with like a kindergarten through fourth grade, I would say.
Hmm.
Typically with anxiety, they'll tell you a lot of those children are very verbal, and they'll tell you because they'll be worrying all day. What's going to happen next? What are we going to do? What's going to happen when that happens? What if I don't? They like to ask, they like to know the worst case scenario. What if I don't? Because they're anticipating something bad happen. And a lot of times it's because a lot of things bad may be happening in their life, either outside or at school. So they're anticipating something bad. Also, um, their social group, if they got into a fight or something like that, they may be anticipating bullying. Okay. They may
Hmm.
be anticipating that things are going to get tough. So what do? They get anxious before school. Oh my goodness, I'm going to go. And then I didn't bring his $5 today, which means he's going to beat me up in front of my friends and they're going to call me mush mouth. I don't, so they start to perseverate and it just spirals out of control. What do you do in that situation? Okay. Once again, that was a young child, and
Hmm.
it's different as you get older, fifth through sixth, adolescence, and then on into high school and into adulthood. But when we're talking about the young school age children, you will start to see loss of appetite. You will start to see wild mood swings because of the anticipation. You might see temper tantrums before getting to school or on the way, usually because they're trying to avoid it so much. So rewinding back, identifying anxiety in school age children, those are the type of symptoms that you will see.
Okay.
Be aware of them. You don't have to act right away, but notice them. And if you feel like it's something that you cannot address directly, make sure to seek support. And really quick, I'm going to also go over depression because that's just the other side of the coin.
Yes.
Depression is the loss of motivation essentially, to do things that used to make you happy. So what you'll see is giving away of prized possessions. You'll start to see loss of friendships. You'll start to see loss of interest in things that used to be fascinating to them. You'll start to see um, loss of appetite, loss of sleep. When you start to see all of these things in combination, you know that something is up. And with children, I don't know how I missed this up to this point, but if you see enuresis or encaprices, which is bedwetting or bed
Mhm.
soiling, that is also an indicator of some types of anxiety. Nightmares, night terrors, those are indications. So what I'm saying is that the children will tell you physically, you will know. You will see changes in the pattern of behavior that don't necessarily correlate with developmental milestones.
Mhm.
Certain things you kind of know. When I'm gonna get to a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, I might see some talk back. I might see them want to express their individuality a little bit more. They might become a little bit more emo. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about people who have gotten to the point now where they feel like the pressure is so much that they start to cut themselves so that they can see the blood bleed to determine that they're still a human. Okay. It releases the stress at that point. They feel like finally there's a release. Um, I am still here. I can still function. It's a maladaptive way to
Yes.
show, but it is how they manifest it. So, I gave you guys a lot in a short amount of time, but I want people to be able to understand and recognize these signs when they see them and to not jump to conclusions too fast, but to recognize and seek support when necessary.
Yeah. And definitely it's a lot to, it sounds like a lot to keep your eye on,
Hmm.
in addition to everything else, I always think about everything else that life demands of us, right? And I
Right.
consider it like we have these balls that we're trying to like juggle like a juggler, right? We got work, we
Absolutely.
got, maybe we have a marriage or relationship we have to maintain. We have our personal health, we have our own mental health. Then if we throw a ball of kids in there and you're trying to keep all of these balls in the air and keep them up successfully, and that's a lot of responsibility on a parent
Mm.
or a caregiver to kind of be able to then monitor the signs that each child may show up with. And I think one of the things that's tougher from the parents I've talked about, or that's difficult, is also just like how do you, when speaking with them about, hey, how do I separate this is to be age appropriate behavior versus like, am I overreacting? So I
Right.
I consider like all of these factors must be running through your head. And then ultimately it's kind of like, what's best for my kiddo?
Right.
So that's kind of like one end of the thing. But then we have our counselors and our psychologists, right? Our school
Right.
psychologists. Let's say parents are noticing, but let's say in school it's starting to show up. How
Mm.
can school counselors and psychologists intervene, let's say when a child starts showing signs of depression
And this is at home or in the school setting?
in the school setting?
Okay, got it. So okay, perfect. With depression, let's start off there. Let's go backwards this time. The first thing you want to do is establish connections. So, who was your best friend? Who did you used to play with? What time of day was your favorite? Okay, you always want to go to the most powerful events because that's what you're going to use as your tools and strategies to get them back on track. So, once you identify those things, also start to identify what did they like to do? What is your favorite TV show? What are songs that you like? Oh, what movie did you watch? Oh, K-pop Demon Hunters. Oh, I watched that too. So you start making connections. Then you surround them with people of similar age, similar look, similar interests, who have also experienced some of these things. And then you put them in a therapeutic environment. So you talk about what they're experiencing, you give them a tool to work on it, and then you practice it. It is that instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. Okay, you tell them how to do it, you show them how to do it, you have them do it, and then you tell them how they did. Okay, that right there, that's the layout with whatever type of strategy or skill they need to know. If you can follow that routine, they can learn almost anything. So in depression, those are the things I would be looking at.
Mhm.
Staying connected, letting people know when you're feeling a certain way, letting people know when you do need a break. There's times when you do need 5 minutes. You know,
Yes.
can you ask for 5 minutes? What is a good way? What is a constructive way? As opposed to just walking out the room or, flipping your table over and destroying it so that everybody else has to evacuate. What is a way that you can escape in an appropriate manner? Can you just give a card to the teacher? Can you just raise your hand? Can you just say, I need 5 minutes? It's amazing how that would drastically change somebody's behavior. When they see there is another way for me to communicate my needs outside of acting out. Oh, well, and it works more effectively and efficiently. I'm doing that. That's what people are. We behave where the reinforcement is. So when you give them those strategies and tools and help them work through it and give them feedback, you putting somebody on track to success. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And in the schools now, or even in the community, because I know the work that you do outside of the school system as well, but what community or school-based programs are effective in supporting students with mood disorders? I know for me, I did a stint with early childhood, and it
Mm.
was, hey, I see a therapist, and I go see Miss Robin 1 hour once per week. And then, so, of course, we will coordinate with the school. But what are some community or school-based programs that are effective for those mood disorders?
Perfect. Uh, Everybody, at least in California, this is more of a California thing, but
Hmm.
even in other states, you do have these centers that are related to regional centers.
Yes.
Now, these regional centers, they are parent support, uh, child support, and those who may need more supports. It's there for them. So you can go there, let them know your situation, and then they will have pamphlets, they will have websites, they will have clinicians, therapists that can support you, in your journey. So if it's outside of the school and you've already gone through the school, you can go to the regional center. If you feel like the regional center is not necessarily where you want to be, or you feel like you're getting the best support, you can always go through your private insurance and ask your doctor or ask your pediatrician. Are there some supports? Even Kaiser gives mental health support now if you feel like you need it. Um, Effective strategies outside of school, such as a peer group, sports. Um,
Hmm.
Knitting, I'm just, I'm throwing out random activities because your child better, whether it's archery, whether it's bird watching, get them involved in something where they can develop mastery. Remember, we talked about education
Yes.
being about learning and
Hmm.
about you feeling good about knowing how to do something and being the best at it or being better at it. So when you can give them something, a random, how to take care of a dog, how to take care of a cat, how to care for your bird, giving them those skills outside of school will help them be successful. So there's a lot of programs that do that, and you can just search social emotional support. There's another one. I want to say it's called Solara. They give free.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so you know about Solara. They give free,
Yes.
behavioral coaching to parents who are having, a difficult time. So that's a resource that you can use. You can go to our website, JediLearning.com, where we always put out information about how to respond to talkback, how to, how to minimize classroom disruption, how to minimize home disruption. There's a lot of resources out there, especially knowing what day and age we're in. We haven't even got into screen time yet, and that's a whole nother beast. But with this day and age, you need those supports, and they're readily available and readily handy. You just have to know where to go. Even the Calm app. As a matter of fact, if you have Microsoft Teams or if you have a Microsoft account, you can go into the meditation area. So they have all these focused meditations that you can do depending on your situation, and you can just hit play. And you and your child can do it together. They can do it on their own. There are a plethora of resources. But like you asked, Robin, you can start off with the regional center. You can start by looking up licensed educational psychologists in your area. You can
Mm-hmm.
go to your insurance. You can search the internet. So there are a number of places that you can go to find that information. And if not, turn on Robyne's podcast. I bet she will have the information for you.
Yes, and definitely I will be linking these resources, not only your contact information, but I'll link the resources for Soluna, the Calm app, and some other just helpful resources in the podcast description for everyone.
Oh, excellent.
All right, everyone. That'll do it for part one of my interview with Ken Kafele. In the second part of this interview, we'll be exploring how learning differences and mental health impact students and how schools and family can support them, plus the role of Afro-centered education in empowering Black students through cultural identity and inclusive learning. And plus, we'll play a round of Robyne's random reflections. Until then, thank you so much for listening to Therapy by Choice podcast. My name is Robyne Vance. Take good care. While we hope to provide insight and education, our podcast does not replace therapy, and listening to our podcast does not establish a therapeutic relationship. If you or someone you know are in crisis, please call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988.